Hello, everyone. Welcome back to day 2 of our ELA lesson. So, on Monday, we went over the types of narrators, character narrators, and author narrators, and we also answered our text dependent questions on the Three Little Pigs. Today, we have the same standard. We are still identifying who is telling the story at various points in a text. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify the narrator in a story, which is also our I can statement. I can identify the narrator in a story. Now, the other day we learned that there were two types of narrators, the character narrator and the author narrator. So let's review our anchor chart so that we can remember some of the ways to determine if the narrator is a character or if the narrator is the author. Okay, so first let's remember what the narrator actually does. The narrator is the person who is telling a story. The narrator can be a character in the story or the author of the story. Now, the other day we learned that some of the ways to tell if it was the character as a narrator was by listening to the words that they say. A character uses the words I, me, my, and we, words that'll let you know that they're talking about themselves. Now, if the author is the narrator, the author does not use the words I, me, my, and we. Some of the words that the author may use could be calling the characters by their names. They could also say they, she, he, his, just ways to talk about the actual characters. So today, we will be reading the story, the true story of the Three Little Pigs. And when we finish with this story, we will also, when we finish and as we're going through the story, we will also determine who is telling this story. Is it a character or is it the author? Now, as we're reading, remember to listen for some of those key words like I, me, my, and we to help us determine if this story is told by a character or the author. Okay, let's get started. The true story of the Three Little Pigs. Everybody knows the story of the Three Little Pigs, or at least they think they do. But I'll let you in on my little secret. Nobody knows the real story because nobody has ever heard my side of the story. Okay, I see this word my. The word my is italicized. So there's my first hint that this may be the character as the narrator. Let's keep going. I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. You can call me Al. I don't know how this whole big bad wolf thing got started, but it's all wrong. Maybe it's because of our diet. Hey, it's not my fault wolves eat cute little animals like bunnies and sheep and pigs. That's just the way we are. If cheeseburgers were cute, folks would probably think you were big and bad too. Oh, look, our character just introduced himself. He said, I'm the wolf, Alexander T. Wolf. And he is talking about himself. So I am really thinking that in this story, the big bad wolf, which is a character, is going to be the narrator of this story. Let's keep going. But like I was saying, the whole big bad wolf thing is all wrong. The real story is about a sneeze and a cup of sugar. This is the real story. Way back in Once Upon a Time, I was making a birthday cake for my dear old granny. I had a terrible sneezing cold. I ran out of sugar. So I walked down the street to ask my neighbor for a cup of sugar. Now, this neighbor was a pig, and he wasn't too bright either. He had built his whole house out of straw. Can you believe it? I mean, who in his right mind would build a house of straw? Now, on this page, I see a lot of our keywords. I see I see my. This is letting me know that, in fact, the character is the narrator of this story. Our narrator is the character. Let's keep going. So, of course, the minute I knocked on the door, it fell right in. I didn't want to just walk into someone else's house. So I called, little pig, are you in? No answer. I was just about to go home without the cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. I found something different about this story. So in the other story we read on Monday, it talks about how the wolf huffed and puffed, and it was talking about what the wolf did. In this story, now that the character is the narrator, he's talking about what he did instead of someone else talking about what the wolf did. Let's keep going. That's when my nose started to itch. I felt a sneeze coming on. Well, I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed a great sneeze. And you know what? That whole straw house fell down. And right in the middle of the pile of straw was the first little pig, dead as a doornail. He had been home the whole time. It seemed like a shame to leave a perfectly good ham dinner lying there in the straw, so I ate it up. Think of it as a big cheeseburger just lying there. I was feeling a little better, but I still didn't have my cup of sugar. So I went to the next neighbor's house. This neighbor was the first little pig's brother. He was a little smarter, but not much. He had built his house of sticks. I rang the bell on the stick house. Nobody answered. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? He yelled back, go away, wolf. You can't come in. I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. Now, in the other story, the author told us that the pigs said, not by the hairs of my chinny chin chin. In this story, the character told us that the pigs said, you can't come in because I'm shaving the hairs on my chinny chin chin. I had just grabbed the doorknob when I felt another sneeze coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I tried to cover my mouth, but I sneezed a great sneeze. And you're not going to believe it, but this guy's house fell down just like his brother's. When the dust cleared, there was the second little pig, dead as a doornail. Wolf's honor. Now, you know food will spoil if you just leave it out in the open. So I did the only thing there was to do. I had dinner again. Think of it as a second helping. I was getting awfully full, but my cold was feeling a little better, and I still didn't have that cup of sugar for my dear old granny's birthday cake. So I went to the next house. This guy was the first and second little pig's brother. He must have been the brains of the family. He had built his house of bricks. I knocked on the brick house. No answer. I called, Mr. Pig, are you in? And do you know what that little rude porker answered? Get out of here, wolf. Don't bother me again. Talk about impolite. He probably had a whole sack full of sugar, and he wouldn't give me even one little cup for my dear sweet old granny's birthday cake. What a pig! I was just about to go home and maybe make a nice birthday card instead of a cake when I felt my cold coming on. I huffed and I snuffed and I sneezed once again. Then the third little pig yelled, and your old granny can sit on a pen. Oh, that's not nice. We shouldn't say that to anyone. Now, I'm usually a pretty calm fellow, but when somebody talks about my granny like that, I go a little crazy. When the cops drove up, of course, I was trying to break down the pig's door. And the whole time, I was huffing and puffing and sneezing and making a real scene. The rest, as they say, is history. The news reporters found out about the two pigs I had for dinner. They figured a sick guy going to borrow a cup of sugar didn't sound very exciting. So they jazzed up the story with all of that huff and puff and blow your house down, and they made me the big bad wolf. That's it. That's the real story. I was framed. But maybe you could loan me a cup of sugar. Okay, so now that we have finished this story, and we have determined that the character was the narrator in this story, because we heard all throughout the story where he talked about what he did and he used our keywords: I, me, my, we. He used those words all throughout this story. So we know for a fact that the character, the big bad wolf or Al, is the narrator of this story. Now, what I would like for you to do is to scroll down and answer our text-dependent questions for the true story of the Three Little Pigs. Don't forget to add your name so I will know who is completing this assignment. Okay? Talk to you again tomorrow.